And welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tidal Flooding Talk. I'm Joe Martucci. Joined with me is Palma Shiles and Dan Skeldon. We are brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition in partnership with our broadcast partner, Tri-X57. Summer is going by way too quickly. It might be because I was out of the country for 2 weeks in Scotland and Ireland, but I feel like I came back and like summer is halfway over, and now it's like kind of see that darkness at the end of the tunnel, not the light at the end of the tunnel, but you kind of see that darkness at the end of the tunnel. Dan, give me some good news.
Yeah, I'm noticing the earlier sunsets already. We're starting to lose that little bit of daylight. So I love the fall.
Yes.
So I'm counting down to what has been a very, very humid summer. I mean, more than anything else, it's just the consistently high humidity is just taxing this summer. Hopefully some comfier days are ahead.
Palma, I know you're a fall person too, so maybe the darkness at the end of the tunnel should be some, I don't know, pumpkins and beer and whatever at the end of the tunnel.
I think when you live where we live, you have to learn to appreciate all of the seasons, right? So I do love summer, don't get me wrong, but I also very much enjoy what the fall season has to offer.
Okay, and that's fair. As we know, Dan and Palma, their favorite seasons fall, right? Palma, number one is fall on your power ranking, right? Fall is 4 on my power ranking, right. And now this is a great time to bring in our guest, Frank Kummer from the Philadelphia Inquirer. He's an environmental reporter. He's been writing since 2001 there. Frank, you've seen a lot of seasons. What's your power ranking for your favorite seasons?
I'm gonna go fall number one.
Fall number one. Where's summer on that list?
Not even close. You know, I have to say summer used to be much higher than it was. It's probably down to 3 because I can't take the heat anymore. It's way too hot. And you guys brought up humidity just before I joined in here. I was reading a Tony Wood story in the Inquirer. He's saying that it's the third muggiest June 1st to July 15th period in records going back to 1948. That's in Philadelphia. So he's looking at Dew Point, I believe.
Yeah, he is, and Tony Wood is great. I've never met him, but I've heard a lot about him. And I wouldn't, I'm sure what he's saying is true. Kind of like we started off June like cool, like it was like we're waiting for summer, and then like June 5th, like Father's Day happened, and then boom, like all.
Really, yeah, Joe. There's that old cliche. It's not the heat, it's the humidity. But I think this summer that applies more than any other. And who would have thought? Some South Jersey people here, and you are in the minority as far as summer being your favorite season. You're surrounded by 3 fall people. I'm sure your opinion, I'm sure most people rank summer first. It's just not this particular group.
And Joe, isn't your pet named after the fall?
Yes, Autumn. We have a cat, Autumn, who's named after Autumn. That's because we got her in Autumn. That didn't have anything to do with our, favorite season. And remember, like I said before, my least favorite season is a non-snowy winter. That is my least favorite season. Fall's above that. All right, let's get into what we were actually talking about here. So, Frank, you wrote a piece here, racing to save New Jersey Island before it is swallowed by rising seas. We were talking about an expanse of salt marsh known as Scotch Bonnet Island. It's kind of near Stone Harbor-ish. It's a good read if you type in your name, Frank, and Stone Harbor and Bonnet Island. You can read it there. Kind of like summarize what was your biggest takeaway from this story that you did, and how long did it take you to create a piece like this? Was this something you worked over a long period of time for?
A week or so. I did a number of interviews. Probably I went on site to Scotch Bonnet Island, spoke with the director of the Wetlands Institute there, and some New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection people, and another scientist. So it took me probably a week to put together, in between other things. So my biggest takeaway is that I knew there were losses, wetlands losses in New Jersey, but I didn't know they were that rapid and that I don't want to use the term frightening, but that creating so much open water in such a short period of time from what was kind of essentially dry land. Yeah.
Yeah. And, we've seen that in the Barnegat Bay. We've seen that in the Delaware Bay with ghost forests. We'll get into all that. But Dan, looks like you had a question.
No, I just what was the feedback? Obviously, lots of eyes on, any media publication going into summer.
Mhm.
The huge increase in traffic at the summer. What kind of feedback did you get from the article once it was published?
Yeah, I know the story was widely read, and I received a lot of emails from people, the usual, people hoping the best for the area of Scotch Bonnet Island, and then some people chiming in about climate change, which they don't believe about. And even though I didn't really get into it in the story, I did talk about sea level rise. So there's always that part of readership that believes this is just a natural phenomenon.
Yeah, we've seen that too. And, something I always like to say in talks is like, look, my job as a meteorologist, I'm not here to tell you what to think or what to do or what not to do about it, but I'm here to tell you the facts and the forecast. And the facts are sea levels rising. Some of it's due to anthropogenic climate change. Some of it's not, but it's happening, right? And we say that at the New Jersey Coastal Coalition. Doesn't matter what you feel about tidal flooding, Mother Nature already decided that for you, when you get rising seas and coastal flooding. I'll kick it over to Palma for a question.
As a reporter, as a writer, do you have to be very careful with how you choose your words when addressing a hot topic like that? So you are sticking to the facts, and maybe if you do have an opinion about it, it doesn't come off that way?
Cases, especially with climate change, sometimes I don't even mention it in the story. This one, I don't think I mentioned it, but I talk about sea level rise. But so many stories in the past I have gotten into, the fact that New Jersey is also sinking. Part of it is sinking as the water is rising, so it has that compounding effect. So New Jersey is seeing faster than average around the globe sea level rise because of it. So, so I think I know how to word it, that I'm not being heavy-handed. But the fact is, it is happening. There is climate change, and as Joe pointed out, part of the problem is man-made climate change. It's not just strictly natural phenomenon.
Sure. You wrote in the story, just a one quote here: Scotch Bonnet Channel, a waterway that cuts through the bay to connect the barrier island to the mainland, has widened by 70 feet since 1970. So you're talking roughly 1.5 feet a year. Now, that's something that's, I think, pretty noticeable. A lot of times with sea level rise, as we know, it's like a couple of, an inch or two a year. And yeah, you're not going to, realistically, you're not going to notice that, in a year or two. But, 1.5 feet is something that's noticeable. The people you spoke with, did they say hey, we're kind of not only is the data there supporting us, but we're kind of seeing it with our own two eyes as well?
Yeah, without question. I think I can say that I've seen it over the years, just because I've vacationed at Avalon for decades. So I'm familiar with 7 Mile Island, some of the back bays and back channels. But Lenore Tedesco, who runs the Wetlands Institute, literally can see it out her window. If you've ever been there, there's a second floor deck. Just looking out on the deck, you have a whole view of Scotch Bonnet Island, and she's been able to personally, witness it over the years. Smaller kind of, squiggles of water picking up in the kind of bubbling up in the what was once dry land, and those squiggly lines of water start to pool together, and they become open water. They become channels, smaller channels that weren't there before. So people are physically seeing it over the decades.
Thanks to the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, your flood insurance bills are lower and your streets safer from the reality of flooding. Since beginning in 2013, we build more resilient shoreline communities. Our member towns develop and share in best practices that anticipate future concerns and create flooding solutions. From our town-specific free web app for flooding information to our weekly Tidal Flooding Talk show, we focus on flooding 24/7. Visit www.njcoastalcoalition.com for more.
Well, welcome back to this week's Tidal Flooding Talk. Great discussion with our guest Frank from the Philly Inquirer and my co-host Palma and Joe back with us as well for this week's Tidal Flooding Talk. Frank, I was wondering too, since the publication of this piece, any, interest, or is anyone pointing out other pieces of land along the shore that they've noticed similar impacts locally, maybe like in South Jersey or up and down the Jersey Shore, where they're seeing something similar that's happening on Scotch Bonnet Island?
I can't say that I've heard from the general public about that, but I know scientists are concerned about it. One of the wonderful things about New Jersey is its wetlands. It has, I think it's roughly 200,000 acres of tidal wetlands. I don't think that's just saltwater, that includes some freshwater too. But scientists are seeing these disappear in various areas. And so Scotch Bonnet Island isn't the first attempt to raise the level of a salt marsh. It's also being done through another project. It's called an innovation lab, 7 Mile Innovation Lab, I believe, by the Army Corps and some partners. So they are raising different Gull Island is one, Sturgeon Island. So it's not unique to Scotch Bonnet Island for sure.
Now, you've mentioned that sea level rise is happening faster in New Jersey than other places. Why do you think that is?
Sea level doesn't rise just like a bathtub. It's not an even thing. So a lot of it depends on geology. In New Jersey, you have groundwater overdevelopment is causing rapid groundwater withdrawal. Groundwater withdrawal causes the ground to collapse. And you also have something called subsidence, which is, the land is actually subsiding. It's actually shrinking from the glacial ages. As the glaciers receded, it caused land to go up, and it's starting to come back down now. Is one of the issues. So you don't just have the sea rising; you have the land sinking at the same time.
Yeah, and according to the Rutgers Scientific and Technical Advisory Report in 2019, really about 60% of sea level rise is due to what we would say man-made climate change. 40% is some of those natural factors you pointed out, the glacial rebound and us draining out of the Kirkwood Cohansey Aquifer. And I spoke with Dave Robinson, who's New Jersey State climatologist. He's on that report, or was on that report. They're coming out with a new report sometime in the coming months, so we'll get an update from there. I want to go back to the raising, though. You said Scotch Bonnet Island's raised. What does that look like? What does raising it mean? What is the construction process of that?
Sure. So this is an Army Corps. Army Corps is the U.S. Army Corps is the manager of the project. It's partners with DP, the Wetlands Institute. But basically they hired a contractor to dredge material out of the Intracoastal Waterway, and a lot of it was deposited there from Hurricane Sandy. They're still dredging, they're still clearing channels because of that. So they took, I think, 25,000 cubic yards of clean sediment, pumped it on Scotch Bonnet Island. If I could just back up, Scotch Bonnet Island was at one point 85 acres. I can say 1941, I think. They have satellite photos of it. It's down to around 50 acres. So it's lost like about roughly 30% of its land mass. So what they did is they kind of cordoned off a 12-acre plot of it, and they raised at least five acres, 2 to 4 feet higher, to last for a couple of decades. So it's basically it's like a fill project.
Is that something they want to do more of, Frank? Like, I think we're more familiar with beach replenishment up and down the Jersey Shore. But here you have, island replenishment, if you will. Is that something, obviously we know the importance of these islands and what they serve. Is that something that they do want to do more of? And is there funding available to do just that?
That's a great question, Dan, because we're all familiar with what's happening in North Wildwood on the coastal side and the Atlantic coast side. Is that it's collapsing, and the federal government has to keep pumping money into it. So now you're starting to see that in the Back Bay, which is alarming to some degree. You've been fighting sea rise on the coast, the outer coast, and now you're coming in inside. But yeah, they are trying to do it. There are a couple other, like I said, there's Sturgeon Island on Gull Island. There's similar ways or similar wetlands, marshes that are being raised along with Scotch Bonnet Island. So they do plan to do more of that. One of the problems is there just isn't enough clean fill, and as you point out, there isn't an endless supply of money for this. The hope is to keep up with it, but with 200,000 acres of wetlands, it's going to be a tough row. And I don't think they believe they can get all of it. They know there are going to be some loss. I think it's just trying to mitigate what you can as time and money allow.
That last point you said, as time and money allow, really sticks out because the end. Like, what is the end game, right? I mean, this isn't going away. You're gonna have to keep replenishing it, and I don't think I'm not expecting you to have the answer. I don't have the answer, but was there someone you talked to that said, at X point it's not going to be worth it anymore, or we're gonna have to try something else? They want to talk about maybe that like 20 to 50 year time scale.
Well, that's interesting because you guys are familiar with the Delaware Bay side too, where the state is basically in retreat, and what they're saying is basically we don't have the money to keep Money Island afloat or whatever, and so they bought people out with the Blue Acres program. I don't know that that's going to happen here, and I think the problem is right now they don't have a handle on everything that's going on in the wetlands. So they set up what's called the New Jersey Tidal Wetland Monitoring Network, and it's got the DEP, universities, nonprofits, and they started installing these things called surface elevation tables or sets. And I think they have about 254 set locations now. And these are literally data collection points spread throughout marshes that are measuring the rate of loss. So as they collect more data and as they get richer tables and data sets, they can start to say, okay, this is an area that's really worrisome. This maybe we can hold off on a little bit. So there is a method to it. It's not just random. But I don't think they have all that data yet, so I don't think they know. And I think they are going to post the data, and there will be like an online map that you can go in and look at it when it's up and running.
So, with that, and I'm not talking to you, but like playing devil's advocate to the state saying that they don't have money for the Delaware Bay. I don't know if that's it. I think it's more of the economic value of Delaware Bay is not the same as the Atlantic Ocean towns. I mean, I've been to Money Island, I've been to Fortescue, I've been to Gandy's Beach. I was there in April. There's a lot of good people in those places, and they want the help, but let's be honest. I mean, a house in Fortescue isn't costing the same as a house in Ocean City, and definitely not in Avalon. And maybe with some of your other reporting that you've done, the Blue Acres program, right? I mean, it's just not feasible in those Atlantic coastal towns for the most part because the houses are just too expensive, right?
You bring up a good clarification that the Army Corps doesn't just randomly undertake projects. It does a cost benefit analysis for any project. And there has to be some economic benefit to it. So as you note, the coast is wealthy, the Avalon, Stone Harbor, these are wealthy communities. There's an tangible economic benefit to keeping them intact and whole. There's less on the Delaware Bay side, as you note. So yeah, it's not so much there's not a pot of money for it. Is it an economic reason to go into those areas?
Yeah. And it looks like, we already have that answer from the state as it is now. These things will definitely change over time. That's not really our purview, but that's just the way it is. All right. We'll take one more break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll wrap it up with Frank from the Philadelphia Inquirer here on Tidal Flooding Talk.
Hello and welcome back. You're watching Tidal Flooding Talk. We're brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, and we would like to remind our viewers to insure your property. Most home insurance policies do not cover flood damage. That's why having flood insurance is crucial. Through the National Flood Insurance Program, communities partners with FEMA to make coverage available, often at discounted rates. So know your risk, explore your options, and make sure you're covered before the next storm hits.
All right. And we are back with Frank Kummer from the Philadelphia Inquirer. We're going to wrap up our conversation with him, talking about reclaiming and the situation with some of these islands in the back bays and how they're going underwater. You mentioned in your story, you did go or, said it was similar to what was happening near the Rutgers Marine Field Station in Tuckerton, jutting right out there into the bay. Great views of Atlantic City, I might add, if you ever get out there on, I think it's Seven Bridges Road that goes out there. Exactly. Like you wrote, the wetlands are also disappearing there, right? We see that too. So, what can you tell us about that area?
It's a unique area. I mean, I had never been out there before I went there, and it's in Tuckerton. So as you said, it's Seven Bridges Road. It's really unique. You go down there and Diamondback terrapins are crossing, the street, and depending on the year. So, you're gonna have to stop multiple times just to get there. And the Rutgers Marine Field Station is right at the end of it. And the problem is it's a beautiful old kind of rambling building, but all the land around it, the marsh around it is disappearing. And it's very similar to what's happening in Scotch Bonnet Island. I think they said they lost 140 feet at the edge of the marsh channel in front of the station. So, sea rise is coming for the Rutgers station.
Yeah, especially the way, like we said, it just juts out there in the water. And there's really nothing around it. I mean, it's just a field station, and that's it. Out there. Yeah.
Right. Do you think the average person notices? Obviously your article helps spread a good example of this happening in real time. But do you think the average local resident, or even more so the average vacationer, do they notice, or are they at the shore, vacationing, sea level rise, the farthest thing from their mind? Is this a hidden issue, or do you think it's
that's a good question now? It's a good question, Ken. I think it's easy to ignore because it is kind of a hidden issue. You don't see it. I mean, I've driven over the causeway, Stone Harbor Boulevard, I don't know how many times in my life, and never really noticed Scotch Bonnet Island, or if I did, it was just more marsh. All marsh kind of looks the same. But it's a shame that people don't notice it more, because you might, if you're a boater, if you've been going there for decades and you take boats, say you go crabbing in the back bays or wherever, you might notice more open water. You might see land receding, and it's a shame because it's not just the loss of land in the open water. It's also it's habitat for animals. The shorebirds are a priceless part of the Jersey Shore. I mean, they kind of make it unique when you go over those causeways and you hear the birds, you smell the salt water. It's a whole vibe that, it would be a shame to lose that. I mean, you have, as I said, Diamondback terrapins there. You have piping plovers, black skimmers, American oyster catchers, red knots, all these different native and migrating birds that call the place home, or that stop to feed. And so to lose it is something really, is to lose something special. But I do think that most of it's lost on average person.
Now, what is one story or moment that really stuck with you while you've been reporting on these several issues over the last years with your articles, whether it's sinking or sea level rise? What really stuck with you?
I would say probably the Bay Shore, the Delaware Bay Shore, because it's such a unique, beautiful place that I don't think a lot of people know about. So it's easy for it to get lost in the shuffle. People are going to care about North Wildwood beaches. They're going to get up in arms if the DEP isn't or the Army Corps isn't rushing to protect it. But not a lot of people go um, to the Bay Shore. Is I think it was more touristy years ago. But there's Dividing Creek. If you've ever been there, there's a wonderful crabbing place where you rent a boat and it's not motorized. You have to row. And you go out in Dividing Creek, and it's just spectacularly gorgeous, uh, uh, and it kind of borders a marshland, and that marshland is slowly eating away. And as Dan pointed out, there's ghost forests of Atlantic white cedar that have they're it's killing the cedar. They can't tolerate the salt water as it pushes in. But also you have we have black gum trees. There were I did a story once where 500-year-old black gum trees are at the very edge where the periphery where the salt water is starting to encroach. And there's real worry that, in 10, 20 years, the salt water is going to come in there and they're going to be lost. To me, it's a loss that people aren't thinking of a lot of times because they don't see it.
Now you can tell in your articles and just the way you're talking about this, you're obviously very interested in it. You didn't just fall into this job. So can you tell us about how you did get here writing about this for the Inquirer?
Yeah, I was actually in management for a while on the website side of operations. I've been a reporter off and on for 40 years, but in 2017, I saw an opening at the Inquirer where I was already working in management. To cover the environment, and I kind of just jumped at the chance. I applied. I was, had an interview and all that, and I got the job. And it's been an amazing experience ever since. But it's kind of frantic. There's so much going on with the environment, especially right now in Washington. And there's policy, there's regulations. If any of you followed New Jersey's trying to create some regulations to deal with development and also all these just sea level rise. So, the state just kind of backed off a plan to have certain areas have buildings risen by 5 feet. They're dropping it to 4. They're saying the science supports it, et cetera. But yeah, there's so much pressure. There's so much money at stake at the Jersey Shore that it's not easy to tackle climate change. So there's just a lot going on in the beat, and it's very busy.
Great. Well, Frank.
Well, I think it definitely suits you. So thank you for doing what you do, because I know sometimes it's not easy getting this information out there and raising awareness about it. So thank you.
Awesome. So we have like 60 seconds left for the one thing we can't stop talking about, tidal flooding or otherwise here. So we'll have to make it very brief. Dan, you want to go in like 10, 15 seconds? Something that's on your mind?
I'll just do my travels since we're not doing vacations to Boise or Ireland or Scotland this summer. We are going to the New Hampshire White Mountains, so Skeleton family can't stop talking about that early August up to the lakes and mountains.
Excellent. Palma?
Well, I was just thinking about it would be nice to have like a long weekend or something. So I am taking recommendations for, somewhere around somewhat local of a good long weekend getaway spot.
Dewey Beach, Delaware. You do that.
I was
Dividing Creek, Palma, you can rent that boat.
True.
That did sound appealing, honestly.
You have to like crabbing, though, I think is.
Yeah, you definitely do have to like crabbing to be there. Frank, what's the one thing you can't stop thinking about? What's been on your mind lately?
I also have vacation coming up in a few weeks, and I'm looking forward to that. We're doing a trip in California, so my wife and I are looking forward to getting away.
You should avoid the humidity there, right? So that's nice.
I hope to. We're driving up the coast, and I haven't been to California in a long time, decades, so I don't remember humidity being an issue, but it would be nice to escape it.
I think you'll be fine in Southern California. I think you'll be fine. Since my vacation's already done for the year, I will say I can't stop thinking about how warm the water is here in New Jersey. We were so cold last year with all the upwelling into early August, where we've been well into the 70s over the past couple of weeks. I hope it continues. Maybe we will get a few 80s on the ocean as we go later into the summer. Frank, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Last word to you. Where can we follow you for more?
Inquirer.com.
Excellent.
And if you click on one of my stories and click on my name, it'll show you all my stories in chronological order. So
Great.
Excellent. Well, Frank, thanks so much for the time. And we'll be back with you again. And to everybody watching, thank you so much for watching Tidal Flooding Talk.
thanks for having me.